Now, I'm sure I don't need to say this, but I will, but I despise Nigel Farage's politics and disagree with him on almost everything. But I think the storytelling has undoubtedly cut through. And so, yes, there has been a huge part of saying, if Farage can do that with a politics of hate and division, then it's time for the Green Party to do that with a politics of hope and community. And that's absolutely what I intend to keep doing.
Right, so let me get this straight. The Green Party leader thinks he can win over Reform voters on migration. Migration, the issue that basically Reform's entire personality, the thing Nigel Farage talks about more than he talks about pints and Brexit combined. Zack Polanski, vegetarian, ex-Lib Dem, leader of the Greens, reckons he can look Reform supporters dead in the eye and say, actually, mate, you've got it all wrong about immigration, and they'll just agree. Bold doesn't even begin to cover it. This is political skydiving without checking if you've got a parachute. But here's the twist. He might not be completely mad. Stick around, because this story gets genuinely interesting, and I promise you'll never look at the migration debate the same way again. Oh, and if you're enjoying this, and let's be honest, you are, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you don't miss when British politics inevitably gets even weirder than this. So who is Zack Polanski? Well, picture this. A former Liberal Democrat who now leads the Green Party, stands about as far from Nigel Farage on migration as you can get without actually falling off the political spectrum, and genuinely believes he can persuade people who want mass deportations that actually immigration is brilliant for Britain. It's like trying to sell ice to penguins, except the penguins are angry, they voted for Brexit, and they're definitely not interested in your renewable energy pitch either. On one side, you've got Farage saying migration has damaged Britain, waving around deportation plans like they're going out of business sale flyers. On the other, you've got Polanski saying migration has benefited the country and we should be letting more people in. These positions aren't just different, they're in different universes. They're not even looking at the same country. But here's where it gets spicy. Polanski thinks the gap between him and Reform voters isn't actually about migration at all. Because according to Polanski, Reform voters aren't really angry about migrants. They're angry about their wages, their housing, their cost of living, the stuff that actually affects their daily lives. And he reckons if he can just redirect that anger away from people in dinghies and toward billionaires and corporations, boom, problem solved. Easy, right? Last week, Polanski went to Calais. Yes, that Calais, the place where the jungle refugee camp used to be before it got demolished. He went there to tackle what he calls misinformation about small boats, which is a bold move when you consider that most British politicians treat Calais as if it's radioactive. They might acknowledge it exists, but they're certainly not popping over for a field trip. His pitch? That when people see the reality of migration, they're actually compassionate, that they just want fairness and transparency. Which sounds lovely until you remember Epping, where asylum hotels sparked actual public fury, or the countless polls showing British attitudes toward immigration have been hardening for decades. Or, Brexit, that little thing that happened partly because people wanted less immigration, not a lecture about how they should want more of it. But Polanski's got an angle here. He's saying the government has given France £476 million, let that sink in, to militarise Calais and stop boats. And his argument is, why are we angry at desperate people risking their lives in dinghies when we should be furious about nearly £500 million being thrown at French border guards? Now here's where things get properly spicy. I asked Polanski, well, Sky News did, but let's not split hairs, what he'd say to Brits who don't feel sympathy for people boarding small boats. His response is, I think we need to make racism unacceptable again. Oof, that's not redirecting anger, that's calling people racist. And when pressed on whether he literally means people who disagree with him are racist, he doubled down with the Ukraine comparison, basically saying, you welcomed Ukrainian refugees, so why not Syrians, Yemenis, Sudanese, Eritreans? Which, fair point about consistency, except political messaging doesn't work on fairness and logic. It works on emotion, identity, and whether people feel like you're listening to them or lecturing them. And this feels like a lecture. For his critics, and trust me, they're sharpening their knives, this is the moment the mask slipped, the moment where the I understand your anger routine revealed itself as actually you're wrong and possibly bigoted. But plot twist, some political analysts reckon he might not be completely delusional. Anti-Establishment Alliance. Joe Twyman from Delta Poll points out something fascinating. Traditional left-right politics is dead, cremated, scattered in the wind, and in that chaos there's actually some crossover between Green and Reform voters. Not on policy, let's not get carried away, but on attitude. Both groups are dissatisfied, distrusting, and disapproving of the establishment. They're both middle fingers raised to Westminster business as usual. Some reform voters aren't die-hard immigration hawks. They're just angry at everyone else, and reform seemed like the angriest option available. Those voters, maybe, just maybe, they could be persuaded by someone who seems genuine in their anti-establishment credentials and isn't Keir Starmer droning on about fiscal responsibility. The Greens are polling at 16%, Labour's at 18%. That's nearly neck and neck. They've had multiple councillor defections. Polanski shifted the party from being solely about recycling and solar panels to talking about social issues, cultural divides, even something called eco-populism, which sounds like it was invented in a trendy Shoreditch cafe but might actually work. At the core of this whole circus is the British obsession with fairness. Farage says it's unfair that taxpayer money funds asylum accommodation while Brits struggle. Polanski says it's unfair that taxpayer money funds militarising borders instead of building council houses. Same outrage, different targets. It's like two people arguing over who gets to be angrier about the same problem. Polanski's pitch is essentially, yes, be furious, be absolutely livid, just be furious at the right people. Not migrants fleeing war zones, billionaires dodging taxes, corporations paying poverty wages, the establishment that's failed you for decades. He's trying to redirect working-class anger from asylum seekers to the actual power structures that shape their lives. It's ambitious, it's risky, and in the age of social media and personality politics, where it's not what you say but how you say it that matters, it might not be completely impossible. Let's be real for a second. Brexit happened. Decades of polling show attitudes hardening on immigration. The cost of living crisis hasn't made people more generous, it's made them more protective of what little they have. Telling someone whose wages have stagnated for 15 years and who can't afford housing that actually the problem isn't immigration, it's capitalism, that's a tough sell. That's trying to teach quantum physics to someone who just wants their boiler fixed. But maybe, and this is a big maybe, there's a sliver of space for this message. Not with everyone, not with the hardcore reform base who'd follow Farage into the channel if he asked, but with those dissatisfied voters who just want someone, anyone, to acknowledge their anger is valid and offer them a different target for it. Polanski's critics will say he's delusional, living in a Guardian reading bubble, out of touch with working-class Britain, and on migration specifically, they might be right. But on the broader anti-establishment pitch, on saying the system is rigged and we should burn it down and rebuild it, that might resonate beyond the eco-warrior crowd. So, can Zack Polanski's anti-establishment message beat Nigel Farage on migration? Probably not, let's not kid ourselves. But can he peel off enough disaffected voters who are angry at everything and looking for someone authentic who isn't just offering them the same tired politics? Maybe, just maybe, and in British politics right now, where nothing makes sense anymore and the rulebook's been shredded, maybe is closer to possible than you'd think. Either way, it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch him try. Thanks for watching. I'll see you